The Dothraki were such majestic, terrible, brutal, fun people to work with.
It's an intriguing culture, and I think we defined certain areas of it in season 1, but we didn't have the time to give it the kind of depth and originality we brought to the other worlds. So this year, we wanted to build on what we had done.
We feel like this time was our chance to revisit that world, to revisit their city of Vaes Dothrak, and give us a real sense of what that city feels like and looks like in a way that we never got in season 1.
Not since season 1 have we had an opportunity to do something like this.
Daenerys is in a bit of a tough spot. She has been recaptured by the Dothraki.
One of the things that was interesting for us is, seeing how Dany can be strong when she's not in a position of power, where she's not sitting on her mahogany bench at the top of the steps of the audience chamber in the Great Pyramid.
Queen Daenerys, tales of your beauty were not exaggerated.
I thank you.
Now she's hostage.
These are people that she knows very well, but that's not necessarily a good thing because she knows what it means to be a captive of the Dothraki.
أنها جاي خالون مور عجلنت فين يدير تيجي عنا فوس بمارتو كيك.
She knows this culture. She is better at negotiating and manipulating seemingly more powerful men. And she isn't waiting for someone to come rescue her.
It's almost a feint that Jorah and Daario are tracking her and trying to rescue her. We really did not want them to rescue her because Dany is Daenerys Targaryen, and she's the least in need of rescue of any woman alive. So we wanted it to be her doing, and we wanted it to be her turning the tables on these cows who thought they have this Khaleesi they're going to put back in her place.
She's trying to kind of get her bearings, and if she is perceived as being passive and in no way a threat, then she can do what Daenerys does best, which is sit and wait and then fuck motherfuckers up. Yeah, I can't say that, can I?
It was interesting this year having to revisit the culture of the Dothraki. They're a pillaging, ravaging nation.
Whereas season 1 focused essentially on Khal Drogo's Khalasar, here we get a sense of the larger structure of the Dothraki culture, and that it is rather structured.
Each tribe within the Dothraki as a people have their own Khals, so they have their own leaders. And a Khal becomes a Khal by being undefeated. So every time he loses a battle, they cut off his hair.
A Dothraki's braid, if it's long, that means he's a pretty fearsome warrior, because if you lose a battle, you have to cut your braid in shame. There's no one Khal that rules over all of the Dothraki. They are these separate roving tribes that pillage and rape and raid all over Essos.
They're organized into hordes, you would say hordes, led by a Khal. Khal takes a Khaleesi, can have multiple Khaleesis, and that's the lady of the horde. Like the queen of the horde, although not the kind of queen that would be recognized in Westeros, as she doesn't really have any real power. It's very much a male-centric society.
A woman's place in the Dothraki culture is a subservient one. Women are taken as spoils, women are taken as slaves, women are raped and brutalized, often by Khalasars when a Khalasar raids a village or a city.
Women are traded, women are sold. But curiously enough, some of the most respected members of the Dothraki culture are the widows of the Khals.
If the Khal dies, that Khaleesi then becomes part of the Dosh Khaleen, which are kind of the old crones, is what they're called. And they just sit out their days being respected and revered by the Dothraki as a people, in that they're wise, and the Khals go to them for answers to really difficult questions.
The High Priestess is the head of that group of people. She protects them.
The High Priestess of the Dosh Khaleen is a fun character. I mean, she's not coming at it from the perspective of somebody who's looking to punish this young person with inflated ideas of her own greatness. I think she's coming at it from the perspective of a person who remembers what it was like to have those own ideas herself.
Ay Khalasari Khalarun Vejvena. Ma Maurice Vascoe Khalisi Haladrogo.
Dothraki are mainly a wandering, nomadic people, but at certain set times in their calendar, they return to Vaes Dothrak, which is their capital city, where they all return and all the Khalasars come back for particular important moments, days, holy days.
Vaes Dothrak is their spiritual home, and as a fighting people, it's where no weapons are allowed, so all weapons need to be left outside the city.
What are you doing?
It's forbidden to carry weapons in the sacred city.
We're asking a dog to hand over his teeth.
You know, we're back in Spain this year as we were last year, and again, it's one of these sets you walk into and it just totally blows you away.
Every year when you come back to Game of Thrones, there's a couple of those wow moments. Being here on location just outside of Almeria, where the city of Vaes Dothrak has been built, basically, was definitely one of those wow moments for me.
We just went ahead and built our own city, because that's what Game of Thrones does. It does it for real. There's no, like, pushover cardboard cutout. It's real villages that they've built.
The original outline and the first script was like, we're seeing Vaes Dothrak in all its amazing glory that we only touched upon in season 1 and you never really saw it. So it's like, wow, it's wide open and we know this has got to be huge.
The Dothraki as a people were already really quite well established. It was just a matter of adding more and more detail to it, because this year we really do get such a good look at them. And being able to see sort of the city of Vaes Dothrak and what is it like when they actually sort of stop and put down some sort of a permanent base.
Well, that was really fun to do, actually, was to design what would this camp be, because they're a nomadic people, so they don't carry around a lot of big things. And I think they did a really nice job. The art department did a beautiful job with it. And visual effects is extending it to make it even bigger than it was. But we had a pretty big camp there. We had a lot of backgrounds and a lot of dressing, and it feels very vivid, I think, and really full of life.
For the first time ever, I found myself looking at African architecture. And we were very fortunate to come across a village in Africa called Benin, B-E-N-I-N. And that has such a unique style of building that somehow it spoke very loudly that that was what the Dothraki would be like. And it has these wonderful big thatched roofs and quite crazy earthen architecture that's not like anything you would expect.
Then we thought about embedding it into the landscape. If you look, the whole temple's got a bit of an embankment around it with all dry grass and so forth in it. And, you know, that seemed to make a new feel, something that we hadn't seen before and perhaps doesn't really exist elsewhere.
What we ended up with was a system of streets that we were able to use, as well as being able to build this temple that should stand for the whole city. Building something that needs to be burned just means that we have to be really mindful of what materials we use, how it's going to burn, in what order it's going to burn. And these are things that are worked out very closely with special effects.
On a burn like this, special effects lead the way. They're using liquid gas to fuel it. It's going to get so hot they need to vent. Venting the heat, venting the smoke was everything. So we haven't built 360-degree circular temple. There's a big wedge, if you like, that's been left out so they can ventilate.
What I wanted to do is have this building that had lots of combustible stuff on it, so when it burns, it burnt for real. And with the liquid propane coming through, makes it look like an inferno. No way can she survive coming out of that. Basically, with the aid of construction and art department, certain parts had to be able to withstand a good amount of heat, and other parts were obviously, like the roof, the thatch, would never survive more than one burn. So that's how we pretty much had to do it for the exterior.
Then the question is, where do you burn the interior?
Vos mana vos khal. Ana voka ki yeri. Vos ma an have a drek. Machin an have a knock.
The decision was made very early on to build 2 temples. We would build the exterior in Spain, which we would actually burn.
And then we built the interior of it back here in the car park in Belfast. So it was just an exterior shell in Almeria, and the interior was a realised 360-degree space.
The interior, obviously, when you've got actors and everybody inside, it's pretty much a pizza oven in its shape. So we had to be pretty clever with that.
The interior burning was scary, genuinely frightening, where I was like, oh, I'm not fireproof, whoops. I forgot about that one.
We had to have a completely controlled environment for the big shot of Dany walking through the flames.
When she leaves, we actually dressed up her stunt double in a fire suit and a fire mask and walked her through some very intense flame, which created the pocket of air for when Emilia does her walk, which is without flame, just with the lighting effect, that can be comped in, but it looks like the flame reacts correctly to a body walking through it.
In terms of what it's like to watch something that we build burn, I think everybody finds that really satisfying.
The end of episode 604 is definitely meant consciously to echo the end of episode 110. It's Dany stepping out of a flame to great effect, just this time on a much, much larger scale. And this really, in one fell swoop, pretty much makes her the queen of the Dothraki without her having to say a word.
What I wanted to create was this kind of reverse engineered wave like you see at a sporting event, only it was of these people bowing before her as she came through the fire. The notion was that you start to see one person go down, and then 2, and then 4, and then 8 and 16, until it becomes like these massive dominoes of 5,000 people, which is created with the help of the visual effects department. We had 400 extras, and for anyone who knows anything about television, that's about 320 extras more than you get on any television show ever, anywhere.
We experienced last year the caliber of extras that we got in Spain. And again, it was just repeated. I've just never worked with such hardworking, happy to be there people. And it just infects the whole set.
They're very enthusiastic about being with us, which is fantastic because these extras get up so early in the morning. A lot of times they're there in their skimpy outfit, and we're standing there in our Jesus, it's cold. And meanwhile, they're there with maybe a little blanket on that we have to strip off as soon as we want to start shooting. So to me, that after a 12-hour day or 13-hour day for them, that they're still loving it. I mean, it really is a fun place to shoot, and the extras are just extraordinary.
We went through the process of having these extras place themselves in different portions around the temple, and then they do what they call tile work, which is they lay it in, and by the time that they're done, it looks like you have 5,000 extras bowing before Dany.
One of the things that goes through Daria's mind is that he thought he knew the extent of her strength and power, but seeing her walk out of the burning temple, it just blows him away.
The two of them are kind of in a similar situation in terms of watching Daenerys. I think it's in that moment that they're both filled with a kind of awe and loss at the same time, because they know that if she's capable of doing that, then why would she ever need them? And the truth is that she doesn't.
I banished you. Twice. You came back. Twice.
Jorah comes back to win my favor, but in that journey, he becomes very sick.
The moment actually in the series where she was probably most likely to touch me, I have to retreat. You must send me away.
I think Daenerys doesn't know what she's going to do with him and the conversation that's going to be had. But then before they can get anywhere, he shows her that. And I think that cuts to the core of the matter, which is that she loves him. She knows that he's doing the best for her by walking away. But then she kind of one-ups him by saying, "You're not leaving me. I'm giving you a job.
I command you to heal yourself."
What Daenerys says, which is, I need you by my side when I take the Seven Kingdoms, that's what Jorah's lived for ever since he met her. So he's giving him a reason to go out and find that cure, not for himself, but for her.
Saying goodbye to this character was going to be painful for the audience, but more painful for Dany, given her conflicted emotions about Jorah. And I remember talking to the actors about keeping the tears inside as long as you could. And that when Jorah admits his love for Dany, that would be probably something he couldn't totally meet her eyes.
I love you. I have no idea how directors put it together and storyboard it, and they'll describe a shot, this bit belongs there, and you think, well, okay, I'll take your word for it. And then you see it all pieced together, and it's so organic and it's seamless. And there are so many variables in Thrones, there are so many elements, and VisFX is a big part of it.
The VFX department brings in all those things that you can't really get. We could go get a dragon from the zoo and film them. I think we would, but there are no dragons. She's flying around. We're going to film her on a buck, which is basically just sort of this green saddle thing that's about the shape of the top of Drugon that she'll sit on, and we'll film her and then composite her into the CG world.
Emilia did a sensational job when I shot her on the urban cowboy riding bull. And having the horses active in the scene charged the scene with a certain amount of chaos and energy. That was totally realistic and brought the level up of how the Dothraki extras reacted. They get on board with her speech. It's extraordinarily rousing.
One of our favorite moments from season 1 was watching Khal Drogo deliver a speech very similar to this one, and she's echoing almost the exact same language. It was one of our favorite moments because it was a big turning point in the story where we really see Dany's ambitions coming to the fore, and also partly because of Jason Momoa's performance, who was so incredible at delivering a speech in a made-up language.
Shooting scenes on Dothraki is challenging, especially for actors who haven't done the show before. It was really impressed upon them ahead of time that they really have to know this stuff. Like, there's no improvising. Like, you really, really, really have to study it. And so they work with dialect coaches, and they really nailed it.
It's easy for us. We write the lines in English, and then the actors have to take this language, and they have to not only speak it well and make it intelligible, but also they have to act. I mean, they have to emote in a language they don't really understand.
That's the challenge. You're speaking this made-up language. You've got to walk and talk, ride a horse with one hand, fight somebody, punch somebody at a certain point, remember all the continuity, and speak a language that is completely new to you and completely alien.
It's a nightmare. When you come across it in the script and you say, I'm speaking Dothraki, you just, no, please no. Please no.
If it weren't for a little magic fairy who goes by the name of Jan Hayden-Rowles, we would all be ruined. We would all be screwed. The reality is that you have your line, the cat sat on the mat, and it would then be translated into words that are applicable to be translated into Dothraki. So the cat sat on the mat would turn into the non-dog would be sitteth by the near the on the sort of by the door-ish kind of thing. And then that would be translated into Dothraki. And then you'd learn that.
Emilia listens to it rhythmically, so she listens to the MP3 files, and then we'll clap it.
I've now got little sneaky little tricks that really help me. Like I make it into a song. Yeah.
Sometimes we beatbox it. We like, and I'll be beatboxing and she'll be singing along like a rude girl.
Like if you get like the right rhythm or something, then it stays in your mind and you like remember the rhythm.
أنا داينيريس جافاسكو هي على تاغاريان أتاك محاكسون مايو سافيرساك خاليسي ميرني خاليسي من دارلي من رويناري ماتاكي خاليسي مرافوشي جافورشي فيا فاراك.
Everything that I say is in Dothraki, so I am completely subtitled, which is cool, it's been a great experience. I mean, the last sort of couple of scenes we shot on the temple, there's like 5 or 6 pages of Dothraki dialogue. It was definitely one of the most challenging things I've ever done.
There's something about it that just makes the whole world seem more believable. It's a weird thing to say, verisimilitude, when you're talking about a made-up language in a made-up world where dragons exist and magic and so forth. But, for us, we're never trying to be tongue-in-cheek. We're always trying to present a world that's completely real. It's not our world, but it's a real world. And Dothraki is just one element that adds to that illusion.
I think Dany is one of the most fascinating characters because the audience never knows what to expect from her storyline. In this season, she becomes the true warrior queen, ready to take on the world.
Watching the way she has come into her own with all the mistakes that she's made and all the impulsive decisions that have come with it, feels like she has earned it.
She's messed up a lot. Stuff's gone wrong. Ultimately, the theme is a lack of trust within herself. And it takes her to be stripped of all of her advisors, stripped of her dragons even, stripped of everything that makes her who she has become, to realize that she doesn't need any of it. She's got herself. This is where the fuck motherfuckers up comes in.